Hi everyone, it's Celeste and welcome back to a brand new cosplay video. In this video, I will be showing you how to cosplay as King K Rool from Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now you might be thinking, why don't I just dress as a sexier female character? Well, that's because cosplay has no limits, no bounds, and will always be available as long as you give it some inspiration and creativity. You know, that whole stay inspired, be creative thing I do at the end of my videos. Maybe you should subscribe so you never miss out on that stuff. But today's video is absolutely King K Rool from Smash Ultimate and Donkey Kong Country and other various Donkey Kong games. I decided to cosplay as this character because it is my husband's, one of my husband's, I don't have many husbands, but my husband's characters he plays as. But he's really good as this character. I thought it'd be really fun to try to take a character that's not so attractive and kind of make it into what I think would be fun to be cosplaying as that. Welcome to the Kinky Rool cosplay tutorial. In this video, you'll learn how to make the gauntlets, the bunny suit, and see that I painted a 3D printed crown and I had to do some things to it. And lastly, you'll actually see how I made the cape. So this is fun. All materials used in building this costume are from recycled projects, such as my Princess Jasmine. Actually, most of this is from my Princess Jasmine, if you haven't noticed. This is the same fabric that I had left over, and you know, sometimes it's really exciting to be able to reuse your fabric leftovers into a brand new cosplay. Doesn't happen with all the costumes, but if you can, why don't you give it a shot? If you're new here, hi, I am CelesteOrchid. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I've been cosplaying since 2005. I won several awards such as Best in Show, Best Masters, and Best Craftsmanship. Woo! If you have any questions, leave them in a comment down below. But more importantly, maybe you could tell me who your favorite Smash character is in the comment section. That sounds like a much better idea, I guess. I don't know. All right, so tutorial time! Woo! Ooh. I am going to be starting with the cape first. The cape, I'm going to be using the rest of my red velvet from my Princess Jasmine cosplay, as stated earlier. A lot of this fabric has leftover weird cuts, so I'm going to be making it into a nice rectangle first. My velvet was actually too long, so what I'm going to do is cut it in half long ways, and then I'm going to sew it together to make a really wide cape. So with my velvet, it was a one-way direction of the pile, so that way if I flipped it, it would be darker on one side instead of it being nice and bright on the other. So make sure that you don't flip your fabric and just sew the two pieces together the right direction of which way it was going. This way it all matches and looks like the same fabric. A good cape is actually not a giant rectangle. It looks like a giant skirt. This way it flares out at the bottom and is tinier at the neckline. King K Rool's neck actually has a little bit of a gathering at the back, so I'm going to kind of keep it more rectangular and then like a skirt A-line kind of thing. But I am going to cut off this extra edge that I do not need. Now that the sides were cut, I need to cut the bottom because the hem is so bad that it needs a haircut. Maybe a hem cut. Okay, you can keep watching and click subscribe. King K Rool has this gold embellishment at the bottom of his cape. They look like alternating triangles. So what I'm going to do is use this gold trim from my sewing stash and put it to use. I've had this for many years and I've never used it. So it's high time I'm going to use it. I highly recommend that you buy a specific gold color for your King K Rool cosplay instead of doing what I'm doing, using all these fabrics that I had on hand and using it for one costume. If you have something on hand, do not be afraid to modify it and use it for your cosplay. By the way, I just want to mention this took forever. This is probably the longest part of the entire costume, and yeah, highly recommend getting gold ribbon if you don't have anything else as a substitute. After my hands started dying from cutting so much, I decided to start drafting out where my pattern's going to be. I did it around 3 inches from the bottom, and then I started creating a 5-inch triangle design. So it goes up 5 inches and goes all the way around the cape, creating the nice King K Rool triangle design at the bottom. This is also used in a lot of like different kind of designs that Nintendo has, or at least that I've seen. because triangles are very prominent in Legend of Zelda costumes. For those who are curious, I was actually using a crayon because it was impossible to mark on the velvet using a normal marking utensil. I definitely didn't want to use any markers or any pen because I didn't know if it would show up through the ribbon. This step is absolutely not necessary because it doesn't show up on my final design, but I wanted to try weathering out the cape a little bit before adding on the gold embellishment. This way it didn't mess up the gold at all and it was still clean. So what I did was I took a little bit of black acrylic paint and I'm going to use this brush and create a dry brush effect directly over the pattern that I created. Now that this is all done with the paint drying, I'm going to go ahead and start taking a lot of this trim that I started cutting off and gluing the... I'm gonna start gluing this to the actual diamonds first. You wanna get that first and then have the lines last so it covers any of the imperfections of your diamonds. Yeah, I will be using, what kind of glue? That glue. My contact cement, because I can't find my fabric glue. Actually, that's not true. I know I don't have any. That's what happened. So I'm going to be using this contact glue for adding the ribbon onto King K Rool's cape. I'll squeeze a generous amount of glue first, and then cut a piece of ribbon to make the diagonal lines. If you want, you could actually cut your diagonal lines first before you adding the glue. This way you're ready whenever you do have the glue available. So the weird part about this is that this gold design is actually on the front and back of the cape. Luckily, this glue is so abrasive that it soaked through the velvet, so I could actually use that as a stencil for the other side. I repeated the same processes for King K Rool's cape to create the design on both sides. I just wanted to show you that it took a little bit of extra effort for having the curve on the bottom of the design for King K Rool's cape. The cape itself wasn't hard to do, the little triangle parts were really easy, but making sure that the entire thing still stuck to how I originally planned was a little bit hard. This is why it's important to not cut your strip too much, because you don't want to be too little on how much you have for the really long piece. Make sure to tap down on your glue so it holds the ribbon in place and does not come off. For the closure on the front of my cape, I added a magnet and that wasn't strong enough, so I added an extra snap. I wanted to make sure that it would not come undone when I'm beating people on stage. So then I went ahead and added my gem here, and I'm going to hot glue them in place, making sure that they are solidified. You're probably wondering where I got this gem from. This gem was 3D printed using a ruby from Legend of Zelda, and I enlarged it by 300%. I'm going to first give it a base coat of glue and then coat it with this bright turquoise color. This color is going to help be the base for making the blue. This way there's a little bit of more dimension and depth to it. Make sure to print out 2 of these diamonds, so you have 1 on both sides. Now in a well-ventilated area, I'm going to be using nail polish. One of the biggest reasons why I'm using this is because it's a lacquer. It's going to be pearlescent and give it a better shine like a real gem and give it really nice thick coating. So I'm going to do this 2 times on each side. Afterwards, I'm going to add some white highlights on the beveled edges. Last but not least is looking at the cape. There's some distress at the bottom hemline, and my hem is too clean for that. So now that it's nicely made and it's all really pretty, a little bit distressing on the gold pieces, I'm going to go ahead and take my rotary cutter and just start destroying the bottom of the hem. Making sure that I follow a little bit of what the amiibo has, I'm going to make the hero cuts, like the really big ones first, and then I'll just start cutting up the bottom of the edge with some scissors. And that's it for the cape. Let's go ahead and get to one of the next costume pieces. Since I was just talking about 3D printing, I'll talk about King K Rool's crown next. If you're a king, you need a crown. I found my file for this on Thingiverse. I scaled it up a lot and 3D printed it out. I covered it in 2 layers of glue and now I'm painting it gold. I'll add a few layers of gold so it's nice and thick. With my crown being completely dry, I needed to find a way to secure it to my head, and so I decided to try using magnets. These magnets were actually good for sewing, but I don't think these were actually really good for my actual project. Either way, I still wanted to try these magnets, so I needed a place for it on the crown. I used some gold scrap fabric and cut out the bottom base from the crown. Using my sophisticated method of hot gluing, I'm going to add this to the bottom of the crown to stick onto the fabric. If you actually get some powerful magnets that work for you, you could actually just put this underneath your wig and then it would snap onto the crown. And then all you have to do is glue the magnets to the crown bottom fabric base and then you're done. Unfortunately, mine were too weak, so I opted to use hair clips. And that does it for the crown. Alright, I guess it's time to hit the main part of this costume, which is going to be the front armor, aka the bunny suit that you saw in the beginning of this video. I am going to be using the gold fabric from Princess Jasmine on her waistband, and this is not stretchy at all, and it's really pretty and squishy. It's a very mushy fabric. I'm going to be using Yaya Han's pattern again. I use it a lot, so let's see how it goes. If you've been on my channel for a little bit, you've known that I've worked this pattern so many times that I kind of know it by heart. But surprisingly, when I made this costume, I kind of messed it up a few times. Either way, here is my lining fabric. It is my Christmas fabric that I made a long time ago. Because I know I won't be using this fabric ever again for anything else, I thought it would be a really fun lining piece. So I made sure to lay out my pattern all over and try to get the most out of it. Luckily, I have enough of this material to make 2 cuts of the plain fabric to my gold fabric. This means that I'll have one for the lining, the underlining, and of course the gold is going to be the shell. So I'm going to cut all of these out and sew it together to create the bunny suit. After sewing it all together, I made sure to clip the curves and I pinned the top part together. So I just want to make sure that it lines up. And then I'm going to sew it all together, creating the bunny suit. Yoo-hoo! While I am not the pattern maker for this suit, you could ask Yaya Han for help, or you could ask me in a comment down below if you have any questions about the bunny suit making. You can see here that I'm starting to invert it and flip it out, but I actually had a huge problem with the crotch area being too tight. Turns out during quarantine, I gained some weight, so I should have probably gone a size up and checked the pattern pieces before moving forward. I will be going back to this costume and cutting off the front part of the crotch and the back part of the butt because it just does not fit. So I will be turning this into just a corset and not a bunny suit in the future. I did just mention that this will be a corset, so of course I'm going to start adding the grommets. I realize now that the grommet maker that I do have does not fit the grommets that I have, so I should go and try to find a grommet kit so it will fit these. Unfortunately, that just means that this will stab my back a little bit when I wear it. I totally forgot to tell you guys that I used zip ties once again to bone my bunny suit. I hope you guys understand that it is okay to not use spiral steel boning or metal boning in all of your projects, especially if these ones are made for fun. Cosplay can be fun, right? Okay, as long as we're all on the same page. I put down about 13 different grommets in each side, so there's like a total of 26 grommets. Yeah, I was really tired of that day. So just in case for anyone who's wondering, my crotch did have a hook and eye system because it's a lot easier for me than a snap system. It did come out a little bit too tight on my crotch, so I added elastic. Overall, I did say I'm going to change it in the future, so take what you will from this part. And that's the bunny suit, the armor piece, that's done. So I wanted just to make a quick note that I am going to be doing a tiny bit of makeup on my body using fishnets and, makeup or paint. Ta-da, and that's how you make scales. Last but not least, King K Rool has bracers or gauntlets. This will be pretty easy if you've watched my fabric covered foam video. Luckily, my Kuroyuki Hime cosplay left me with enough scrap foam to create both bracers. First, I need to find enough space on my scraps to make the base of King K Rool's bracers. So, I will need to cut 2 rectangles for each wrist, and then I will need to cut 2 long pieces for the edges of each bracer. So, cutting 4. For the raised edge part, at first I thought I could use 1 inch, but that ended up to being too big, so I'm going to be using 1/2 inch for these parts. Because the bracers are gold, I grabbed my gold fabric again and cut pieces big enough to cover and wrap around the back of all the foam pieces. I secured down my fabric to my foam using some hot glue. This hot glue is actually cool hot glue, so it's not as hot as some of them, and I make sure to cut the edges so it will lie flat. Slowly, carefully push it all the way around just like my other video, and ta-da, you'll have your foam covered in no time. Now it's time to assemble. Take the raised edges and add hot glue to the back and press it down on the long edge of the big rectangle. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, so I do this for both gauntlets on the front edges. To make them close, I decided to hot glue elastic on the inside so I can slide my hand easily without having to snap anything. This is just one of those, hey, let me slide this quickly on and off kind of pieces because the rest of the costume is fairly simple to get into. So this is my King K Rool costume. It definitely reminds me a lot of like a retro Wonder Woman costume because of the gold bunny suit and the cuffs. But I feel like the gauntlets are always going to be a staple with King K Rool. Originally, I was thinking of making it as bracelets, but I don't think that was very natural. I thought that would take away from the character. I didn't put on my nails for this part because I didn't want to scratch myself, and it's a little bit dangerous. So I will be adding the fake nails that I have for photo shoots only. And that way I can get in and do my makeup and not scratch myself and poke my eyeballs out. That is not fun. So make sure that you're always safe in your costumes. I know that originally when I was trying this on and test fitting, it was so tight on the crotch and I was so disappointed. Luckily, I have a great support system such as my husband. My husband there helped me out getting into the corset and kind of encouraged me to push through and make sure that this costume gets done. And I actually am so happy with the results. You can see that my crown is a little wobbly, but that's because I could take it off and then like throw it like how he does in the video game. So I don't think a lot of people would understand who I am unless there are other Smash characters around me. That being said, leave a comment telling me who is your favorite Smash character and why. If you like this costume or like what I do, leave a like on this video and share it with some friends. And remember to stay inspired, be creative, and I will see you in a future video. Bye!